and welcome to Colin's Wonder. I hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, I have a pen review and Penmore's entry for a pen by Ferris Press called the Joule. I actually have two different variants to show you. This is my personal pen, so it is the Joule, but it's the variant's Engravers Teal. So I do love the look of this pen and the color. And then my wife's is Chantilly Lacewood. So I believe it's just the color. So if I go ahead and uncap it here, give you a close-up of the nib. And I'll throw in a macro here for you to look at. So I do like the nib. I personally wish it kind of was a solid gold color to match the grip section. And I do actually really like this grip section. I like all the detail in there. And it does add a little bit more grip without, any discomfort as I hold it to write with. But I do wish that it was just that solid color. I think it would just match a little bit better. I generally do like two-tone nibs better, but in this case, I think it would be better with a solid color. Another thing about this pen that you may notice is it doesn't have a clip. And I actually like that it doesn't have a clip. I think it looks great. And I wouldn't want a clip on this pen. That said, I do wish there was a roll stop. And how I think they could have done it is just added maybe a little circular jewel or something in this on the cap here between this brass section. I think it would have, just prevented it from rolling off the desk, which is, I think, important because this pen does have a tendency to roll if you're not careful. Fortunately, I have not had that happen to me yet. I hope it doesn't, but unfortunately, it did happen to my wife once. It slipped out of her journal and rolled across a desk and hit a hard floor. Fortunately, it didn't get damaged. It is a pretty solid pen. It's made out of brass, and then I think it has several coats of paint and is finished really well. I'm pretty impressed with it as far as the finish goes, and I think that's what you would risk damaging is maybe that finish cracking or getting damaged if it falls. The other thing is this pen, I wouldn't recommend posting it just because you have this metal portion that might scratch the paint, and I wouldn't recommend posting this pen. But what I really love about this pen, it handles almost every ink I've thrown at it. So it's made by Ferris Press, which is known for their shimmering inks, which tend to clog up a lot of my other pens. But every shimmer ink I put in this and my wife put in hers has just, it's been fabulous. It just had no issues so far. So happy to report that. It's been a great writer. It's handled inks really well. So generally speaking, when we have a new shimmer ink in question, we usually throw it in one of these or, a cheaper pen. But these have been great as far as inks go. So let's see here. The price of this pen, I think it retails for $210. There's several different colors available. And that is a little on the higher side, but I think it's okay. Its price is just okay. It's not like a huge value, but it just feels really good. I love the weight, and it feels premium to me, even though it's a steel nib. It's not a gold nib, but it feels really good. The nib is stiff, so it does write really well, handles the inks fine, but it is a stiff nib because it's steel. So it's one of the stiffest nibs I have. I don't mind that. There's not much line variation, and that's okay. But yeah, I really do enjoy using this pen, and I would buy it again. And in fact, we're looking to buy another one for my wife's mother if a purple variant comes out, because her mother loves purple pens. So if we can find a purple one and at a future date, we'll pick one up and gift it to her. So yeah, let's see. I don't know if I did a size comparison yet, but it is on the longer side. Um, but it's not too bad. This is pretty much, you know, it's where it's in the Goldilocks region of where I'd how long I like a pen. I think the Esterbrook Raven's just slightly too long. The Magna Carta is really pushing the border of length, but as you can see, it's a little bit shorter than the Pilot Custom, which is pretty much the maximum range I would prefer a pen to be. And then, it's a little bit longer than a Mont Blanc, Meisterstück, and, Twisby Kai, Lamy 2000, and the Sailor Rilio. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into some writing samples. So I'm gonna move this aside and then open this. So I have a writing sample, and I'll zoom in here for you. So my wife was kind enough to give us a writing sample. So that's what it looks like. Not a ton of line variation, but it writes really well. So yeah, I'll go ahead and give you some in-person live writing samples from her pen and mine. So I'll try to do it a little quicker here. But yeah, this pen is a nice writer for me. So this ink is and then it's in a Ferris wheel press. Joule. Not Joule as in a jewelry, but when I see that Joule, I think of physics. So yeah, let's go ahead and get some of hers on here. This is a Rorealis. So it's one of the Ferris wheel press inks. I don't know how to spell this, so I'm not going to even try. Let's see. Both of these are fine nibs. I'll go ahead and try to measure line thickness. Not the most accurate way, but it's what I got, so try to measure it. It is tricky because there's definitely better ways of doing this. But I think I'm at a point around a 0.5, 0.51. So, and then let's go ahead and get to the weight real quick. Just because I love this weight. This is like one of my ideal weights as far as the pen goes. So 38.16 grams. Okay. And then hold this up. Might be able to see some sheening properties or shimmer properties of sheen and shimmer of the Rorealis. It's like a really dark purple. I've seen it, a lighter shade of purple. It really depends on the pen it's in. And so, yeah. Okay. So I think that's it as far as my review goes before we jump into Pen Wars. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So this is the Joule by Ferris Press. And it's in a fine nib. Okay, so the appearance. I actually love the shape of this pen. So I'm going to give it a 9. The nib, I do like the nib. I like some of the detail work on there. As I said, I just wish it was okay, so I wish it was all one color that matched the grip section. Or if they're going to do a two-tone, I wish that the silver part of it was a little more shiny. It's a little, dull. So I think the dullness doesn't really match the rest of the pen. But I still like all the engraving and detail on this nib. Even though it's a steel nib, I'm not holding that against it. So I'm giving it an 8. I can't really grade any kind of clip. But considering, they added all this detail work on the grip, and this pen to me is kind of unique. So I'm going to give it some originality points. So 3 points. So it's a perfect 20 out of 20. Okay, so the build. This pen feels solid, feels like it's built well. Besides cosmetic imperfections that might happen if it gets scratched on the paint, I think it'll hold up very well over time. The materials itself, if it was a gold nib, I might give it a perfect score here. Just because they'd be more premium materials, and maybe if the feed it's probably just a plastic feed. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it an 8. And then on precision, it feels really well made. The threads engage perfectly. They're not considering they're even metal threads, and just the overall execution of this, I can't really ding it any precision points. So I'm gonna give it a 9. The nib alignment, let's see, I'm gonna give an 8. It's not perfect. My wife's pen is like almost perfectly aligned. Mine's not, so I'm gonna give it an 8. Imperfections, I really didn't have any imperfections with this pen, hers or mine. And spare parts, I'm not gonna give it any points here. So if we add that up, that's a 35 out of 40. And that gives us a 17.5. Okay. Next up, design. Fill mechanism. It's a cartridge converter. So that's a 7. Now, one thing I'll say is I've come to appreciate cartridge converters more. So I feel like if I were to redo Pen Wars, I would start to boost the cartridge converters, but I want to be fair to pens I've previously graded. Part of me still likes the idea of piston pens more, but thinking about maintaining the pen and over time, so like 10 years down the line, it's a lot easier to replace a universal cartridge converter than it is a piston mechanism that uses custom parts. So I think there's some bonus to having a cartridge converter. So I'm not really going to score the clip. But the flaws, I'm going to hold it not having a roll stop against it. And that's the only flaw I'm going to hold. But I think it's significant enough to give it a 7. And it doesn't really have any features. So that's just a 14 out of 20. Yeah, if it had a roll stop, I'd give it a perfect. I wouldn't hold any flaws against it. But I just think that's a design failure of asking for trouble of this pen dropping. All right, so usage. As I've previously mentioned, this pen has been very well. I've loved writing with this pen. I've had 0 skipping issues, 0 hard starts, great ink flow, even with crazy hard inks. I love the weight of this pen. Everything gets a 10 on cleaning right now. So if I were to change this, I think I would get rid of cleaning and look at more of how easy is it to maintain this pen over time. So that would be a new way of thinking about it. And writing. So writing, I tend to write with this pen for a long time. So I'm going to give it a 9. So that gives me a 59 out of 60, which translates to a 19.7, which is a pretty good score. So now the price. So I keep going back and forth on the price. I don't think it's like the best value pen out there, but it's definitely feels, like I'm not getting ripped off at $210. To me, that's just how I personally feel. But I do think there has to be markup, and I understand that. But considering there's alternatives in that similar price range, I think I'm going to give it an 8 on the price. And then Ferris Press as a brand, they make a ton of inks. And in fact, I would say they make too many inks. That's my biggest complaint about Ferris Press is there's just too many inks to keep track of. I don't even know what I'm looking at every time I go to the store or can't keep up. And even the owner of the store has mentioned that he can't keep up with the inks until he sells the one he currently has. So I feel like they just come out with too many inks, and it's hard to distinguish between them. So I do wish they would slow down on that a little bit. But I'm going to give it the brand an 8. So I think that brings our total score to an 87.2, which is a pretty good score out of 100. So yeah, I do really like this pen. If you think it looks good, I would recommend looking into getting one. If you are fortunate enough to be able to see it in person, definitely recommend that whenever you can, just to avoid any surprises. But I feel like this pen is pretty solid compared to other pens by Ferris Press. My wife also has, I think it's a Carousel. I could be wrong. I'm not super familiar with it, but I personally don't like it. And she didn't like it much either. So, yeah, but we both love our Joules. So, yeah. All right. So I guess that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you for your time. I do appreciate you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Consider subscribing.